Pierre-Olivier, good day.
Hi. How are you, Yannick?
Pretty fine yourself?
I'm good too.
Today, Pierre-Olivier, we're going to talk about Knight Therapeutics. Knight Therapeutics is a company, Montreal-based company, and we're longtime owners of Knight. And what's interesting, a recent event that occurred is that renowned investor George Armoyan bought 10% of the outstanding share of Knight. How do you interpret this acquisition by Mr. Armoyan, which is pretty well known in the Quebec Inc., but less known by the public? So can you give us a little picture of this transaction?
Yeah, well, at first when we've seen it on the news that Mr. Armoyan decided to buy such a stake in Knight Therapeutics, we were, kind of questioning ourselves, what's going to happen, because Mr. Armoyan, he's a good investor, had great returns over all those years, but he's been an activist. So he's the kind of person who would buy into companies, get a seat on the board, and move things and shake things. Okay. So seeing him on Knight, it was like, okay, what is he gonna do? What are his intentions, right? And so we've seen the day after, he gave interviews at La Presse, which is a local newspaper in Montreal. And he basically said that he was praising the management and that they had done a great job, and he expected to be a long-time shareholders in Knight. So instead of making us nervous, it was like, okay, his intentions are good, and we can go on and keep doing our due diligence on Knight Therapeutics. And so what's interesting is, given his past as activist, he is a good investor, seeing, well, is it a good management or a bad management? Okay, and what his verdict is, they're doing a good job.
So Mr. Armoyan is seeing value in the stock, in the company. We too, as a long-time shareholder, but Pierre-Olivier, the stock has done nothing since 5 years. It's flat. So can we expect that it will eventually go up, that the market will recognize the value of this company?
Yeah, we certainly hope so. Otherwise, we wouldn't hold such a stake in Knight. Well, as Buffett would say, investors don't benefit from past earnings. We invest in future earnings. Maybe it has been a bad call from us to buy a stake in Knight so early, when they were founded in 2014.
In 2014, because the expectations were pretty high. People were looking at Paladin's success. Paladin was the previous company of Mr. Goodman. By the way, it was a really nice success on the stock market, because the stock went from a few dollars and were sold $103 per share in 2013 to Endo Pharmaceuticals. So people had a lot of expectation, and they were thinking that Mr. Goodman would do as well very quickly, very fast, but it's not that scenario that occurred.
And when you think about it, it takes time. And maybe that was our mistake in the past, that we thought it would be much faster to create a new business from scratch, right?
Yes.
And so, convincing a partner to give you a license for a drug when you don't have a sales team, you don't have any physical presence in Canada, you're really from scratch, it takes a lot of time.
He was working with his reputation. That's the only thing.
And that's how he was able to raise so much capital at that time. They wanted to buy back again Paladin Labs a few years after they built from scratch. and they weren't able. And so there was this activist battle. There's been the acquisition of Biotoscana in Brazil, which took them probably a year to close. It was a publicly traded company in Brazil, so new regulatory environment, deal that it's pretty hard to close. And then right after they closed that deal, the pandemic happened. And so the management out there in Montreal, they were not able to physically get in Latin America to integrate the business. So they've been unlucky. They made some mistake along the road, but now they're gaining traction. They've been signing a lot of new deals on mature products. So they have immediate sales
and profits.
Yeah, and also future products that they need to get approved with regulatory authority amongst all the countries they are in. So they're probably going to be able to grow mid-teens, maybe in the low 20s for the next few years. And the stock is traded at a an undecent valuation. It's really low.
A deep discount, but it could stay low. It could be a value trap, no?
Well, if the business grows and the earnings keep growing, at some point the investors got to look at this and value it to the valuation they would deserve. So the catalyst would be they just keep doing what they do, and like I said, they gained traction over the last 2 years, but we will only see it over the next few years, because those deals, when you get them on license, before you get some meaningful sales, you need a couple of years. You need to train your salespeople. You need to get the drug approved. You need to launch it. You need to talk with the doctors so they can write the scripts. So there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to be able to get the profits on the bottom line. So,
yeah. So as we know, Mr. Goodman built companies for decades, not for the next quarter. He's a long-time investor. But as we saw a few years ago, Pierre-Olivier, there has been a shareholder fight between Mr. Goodman and Meyer Jacobson. Can we expect to see another fight between Mr. Armoyan and Knight Direction, Mr. Goodman, with the acquisition that Mr. Armoyan just made?
Well, first, Meyer Jacobson is out of the equation. He signed a contract that says that he would sell his stock if it's not already done. Mr. Armoyan, he's been clear. I think his intentions are clear that he want to bet, it's a long-term investment for him. So I don't think there's too much risk there. Jonathan Goodman owns 20% of the company. Medici owns a meaningful stake. And Mr. Armoyan, I mean, if you sum up all the parts and you look at what's remaining, there's not a lot of room for an activist shareholder who would want to break things and shake things. So my guess, it's not probable. And so if an investor thinks that this management is able to get the revenue and the profits going, there shouldn't be any outside consideration on the activist stand front that should keep us away from having good returns over the next few years.
Okay. Last point I want to touch, Pierre-Olivier, is the fact that Mr. Goodman and the company as well is they're buying back a lot of shares. Will it be a catalyst at some point, because the stock is pretty cheaply valued? So how do you see these buybacks?
I don't think buying back shares is a catalyst at some point. If you're a good entrepreneur and your stock is publicly traded, you want to do it when the stock is clearly undervalued. And when another catalyst comes along,
Yeah.
then if you bought back your shares when the price was really low, you should be able to harvest, the fruits from those buybacks, because the earnings per share are going to grow faster. But the buybacks as a standalone is not going to be meaningful. They need to get the profits higher.
Okay. So it's good for actual shareholders. It goes in the right direction.
It's a good use of capital. If you have half of your market capitalization that's in cash, and you don't see
any opportunities.
Yeah, and you got that opportunity. There's no operating risk. You just buy back your shares on the market. That's a good use of capital. I mean, they should be rewarded eventually by doing that. So,
great. Thank you for your answers, Pierre-Olivier. So thank you for your time. And as usual, you can reach Medici team by email. You can reach us on social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We're always there if you have any question about your financial situation or about the stock market. Thank you.